trick with whales like Ichikawa was that they can't bet small for long. He didn't think of it as winning 10,000, he thought of it as losing 90,000. So he upped his bets. Until he dropped his winnings back and gave up $1 million of his own cash. In the casino, the cardinal rule is to keep them playing and keep them coming back. The longer they play, the more they lose.
That's the way it goes from the great movie Casino. And we welcome in Arnie and Shelia Wexler. I have known Arnie for, oh my gosh, 30 years possibly.
Yep.
Husband and wife certified compulsive gambling and drug and alcohol counselors. And they have a brand new book. And we're going to put it right up on the screen. It's called All Bets Are Off: Losers, Liars, and Recovery from Gambling Addiction. And there it is. Arnie and Shelia, welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be with you, Steve.
Always great to talk to both of you. The book is so compelling, and it addresses such a major problem in this country when you talk about compulsion of any kind and the illness that it is, right, Arnie?
Well, it's probably devastating to a lot of people in this country. The National Gambling Commission study of 1999 said there were 5 million addicted gamblers in this country and 15 million at risk. And that's what we're concerned about, the 15 million at risk.
And Shelia, how does someone, if we focus on the gambling aspect of it, how does someone get started down this horrific road? I mean, some people could place a bet and place another bet, and they don't have to place one after that, or maybe not for another year. Others, once they get that ball rolling, they can't stop. Why?
Exactly what happens. Some people either have a predisposition to gambling. It may run in their family. Some form of addiction may run in their family. It's hard to tell who's at risk until they actually start gambling. Almost always, the beginning for that person is a win of some kind. Big win, a series of wins, a hook that tells them that they need to keep coming back.
And Arnie, keeping it a secret as long as you can, the addiction, and it leads to, loss of family, loss of money, of everything. I mean, people wind up with nothing. But the lengths that people go to try to keep it secret, I mean, that's not only hard to do, it's totally counterproductive.
You know what, Steve? It's pretty easy to do for a compulsive gambler. There are no track marks, no dilated pupils, no smell. They're not falling down. You give an alcoholic $1,000, before they go through their money, they're laying on the floor out. And the same thing with a drug addict. A gambler goes through the $1,000, signs a marker, writes a check, and then takes off their watch and sells it to somebody next door to them. So the gambler, there's no saturation point. They could keep going forever.
Talk about how this terrible condition, what it did to your life, Arnie and Shelia, to your lives.
I started gambling when I was 7 or 8 years old. It was flipping baseball cards, shooting marbles, pitching pennies, playing pinball machines. At 14, I went to the racetrack, and what Shelia talked about, the hook. I was making 50 cents an hour after school. It was 1951. It was Memorial Day. I went to Roosevelt Raceway. I ended up winning $54, changed my life. It told me that I could be a millionaire from gambling. What an easy way to make money. What a jerk I was to make 50 cents an hour. And I was hooked. By 17, I was stealing to support my gambling addiction.
And Shelia, how did you deal with this when when you met Arnie and it became a problem for in your relationship?
Yeah, I didn't see it as the problem. I just knew we were having problems. We were having financial problems. Then we weren't talking to each other. There was always something in the way of a good relationship, and I was always wondering why. Maybe I wasn't a good enough wife. Maybe he had somebody else. I never understood what gambling was doing to him. I knew he gambled, but I never knew the extent of it. I didn't know how often he gambled, but it certainly got in the way of any kind of normal life.
Steve, nobody talked about compulsive gambling in the 60s. You didn't know it existed. There was nothing in the paper. Nobody in the media was talking about it. It was a hidden illness, and it's almost a hidden illness today. If you go to a mall and speak to 100 people and ask them where they get help for drugs or alcohol, 90% of those people know. If you talk about getting help for gambling, nobody knows.
Let me ask you, Arnie, real quick, the internet. And, casino gambling over the internet, all kinds of gambling over the internet, even fantasy football gambling over the internet. How do you combat that?
There is something called Gamblock, which you can get out of Australia, and it helps you block the gambling. We run a national hotline, 888-LAST-BET, and the calls are coming in like crazy. Every month there are bigger and bigger amounts of calls.
888-LAST-BET. And, of course, the book, which, it talks about Arnie and Sheila's experience and how they have now turned their experience, their terrible experience, how they've overcome and how they are helping others now. And it's a very touching book and a very informative book. And if you know anybody or if you have a problem, either way, call that number and pick up the book. And as it says in the book, most people look at gamblers as bad people or crooks and not as addicted people in need of help. Arnie and Sheila write, I want to change that perception, and I believe this book will help to do that. All Bets Are Off is the book. Arnie, Sheila, great to see you. Thank you very much for taking the time, and good luck.
Thanks so much
Stephen.
for having us.
Appreciate everything you've
All right,
always done with this issue.
My pleasure. And say hello to Steve Jacobson, a great writer at New York Newsday. Okay, folks, we'll be back with Paul E. Vallely, talk about ISIS and more.